What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of With or Without Whiskey, the show where I give you the history and review of all things whiskey. I'm Ryan, and today I will be reviewing Michter's Single Barrel Rye. So enough talk, let's get into it. In 1753, two men named John and Michael Shanks started distilling whiskey in Schaefferstown, Pennsylvania. The two men were Swiss Mennonite farmers who grew rye as their crop of choice. The whiskey they distilled was a rye whiskey, which was common in Pennsylvania because of the large abundance of rye crops. According to lore, this particular whiskey was so good that during the American Revolution, General Washington purchased it from the distillery to fortify his men through the winter. Around 1860, a Pennsylvania Dutchman named Abraham Bomberger purchased the distillery and named it the Bomberger Distillery. He ran the distillery until 1919, when it closed down during Prohibition. In 1920, the distillery was sold to Ephraim Sechrist and then sold to Louis Foreman in 1942. He soon sold it during World War II, but repurchased it in 1950 after two other owners. Foreman and his master distiller, Charles Everett Beam, designed a pot still mash whiskey that they named Michter's, which is a combination of Foreman's two sons' names, Michael and Peter. The first batch was distilled in 1951, but was aged for 6 more years. At this time, whiskey had fallen out of style and many distilleries were suffering. In 1989, the new owners declared bankruptcy and abandoned the Pennsylvania premises. In 1990, the Michter's name was purchased by Joseph Magliocco and Richard Newman, who resurrected the distillery in Kentucky. Michter's Single Barrel uses an undisclosed mash bill that consists of at least 51% rye. It is 84.8 proof or 42.4% ABV. It is chill filtered, has no added coloring, has a barrel entry proof of 103, and costs around $40. It is a non-age statement whiskey, but because it is straight, it is at least 4 years old. All right, let's get into it. That was a squeaky cork pop. All right. So let's take a look at the color. So that is dark. It has a really nice brown, kind of deep amber to it. Now there's no added coloring to this, so all of that comes from the barrel it's aged in. So this might have a very good oak influence. That's kind of my thought. All right, let's get into the nose. Okay, right up front, I'm getting plums and I'm getting figs as well. It's got like those fresh cut fig scents. There's some honey in there. There's a good amount of spice. I'm getting some cloves and I'm getting some allspice berries as well. There's a good black licorice note to this, but it's definitely not overpowering. I'm getting a lot more of the sweet scents than I am the black licorice scent. There's a good amount of cherry, a decent amount of maple syrup, and I'm kind of getting some honey and some corn as well. The oak note is there, but it's definitely not strong. It's like a touch of oak. Let's see how it tastes. Cheers, guys. Okay, right up front, it's super sweet. Cherry, honey, caramel right there, but then you immediately get hit with that heavy rye spice. You get the cloves, you get the allspice. There's a good black pepper note there, and a slight amount of black licorice as well. I'm also getting ginger in here, but it's not like fresh ginger. It tastes almost like candied or crystallized ginger. It has that little bit of sweetness, but still that ginger bite to it. The finish is pretty short. It really doesn't hang around all that much. And what I'm getting is a good amount of oak. I'm getting some apples in there, and there's a good nutty aftertaste. It doesn't taste like toasted almonds. It tastes kind of like sliced almonds. Like if you just had the white inside part of an almond without the brown skin, it tastes like that. All right, let's see what happens when we add a little bit of water to it. But before we do that, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button down below. Not only does it show support for the channel, but it helps new viewers find us as well. And that's what this channel is all about. Getting new people the information that they need about the whiskey they want to get. All right, let's see how Michter's holds up to a little bit of water. 1, 2. Okay, the nose is a lot more gentle. There's a good amount of honey on there. There's a decent amount of oak, and I'm getting a little bit of that nuttiness on the nose now. Most of those rye spices have kind of dulled down. I'm getting a little bit of cinnamon, but not really that much. It's mostly honey and maple syrup. Yeah, the nose is a lot sweeter with water than it was without. Let's see how it tastes. Okay, the taste is about the same. Sweet up front, I get cherry, I get honey, I get caramel, and then it goes right into the spice part of it. Cloves and a little bit of cinnamon. The only difference is both sweet and spice are dulled down. So instead of them going head to head and trying to fight for who's gonna win, it's more kind of I'll go then you go kind of feel. On the finish, you're getting a lot more rye than anything else. Those clove notes are really coming through. I'm getting a lot more of that allspice flavor. And there's a good amount of barrel charge, just kind of lingering at the ends. But other than that, it's pretty much the same as without the water. Pretty short and not that much going on. All right, stick around for the grade. So, Michter's Single Barrel Rye. What do I think? So, on the nose, I think I'm gonna give it a 13 out of 20. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really anything special. You got a couple of sweet notes. There was some cherry, there was some honey, there was a little bit of maple syrup, and then you got the standard rye spices. Cloves, allspice, black licorice. Nothing too crazy there. For the taste, I think I'll give it a 16 out of 20. Really wasn't that bad. You got those same notes. There was a good amount of sweet. You got cherry, honey, caramel. Then you got black pepper, cinnamon, allspice. And it had a really good candied ginger kind of note, which was really enjoyable. So that brought the score up a lot. The finish on this one, I'll give it a 13 out of 20. Nothing too crazy. Again, it was pretty short. There were some apple notes, decent amount of oak, and a little bit of that nutty note, but really not that much complexity. And for the water, I think I'll give it a 16 out of 20. It was actually pretty nice with the water. On the nose, it took away a lot of those harsh notes. The rye spice and the sweet notes were still there. They just weren't as intense. And then same thing on the taste. Really wasn't much different with the water versus without the water. It was just dulled down a little bit. So for price and availability, I think I'm gonna give this one a 7 out of 10. For 40 bucks, this is fantastic. Usually ryes cost a little bit more than bourbon, and I honestly don't always feel like paying that extra premium. But for this one, I'll pay $40 all day long. Availability-wise, this one is readily available. When I go to New York, I see every single Michter's product in every single store, or at least the baseline ones anyway. And even here in South Carolina, I don't see a lot of them, but the one I see more than any other one is the rye. It's in a lot of liquor stores, and there's usually more of this one than any of the other ones. Why, I don't know, but it's almost always available, and I know I can always find this one. For uniqueness, I think I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 10. It gets a 2 because, yeah, it's a rye, nothing special there. Michter's main claim to fame is chill filtration, but there are a lot of whiskeys that are chill filtered. What gives it a little bit more uniqueness than a standard rye is it's a single barrel. So single barrels are usually going to be different from batch to batch, but sometimes it's very, very small differences. So the total score for Michter's single barrel rye is 67 out of 100. So for this one, I think I'm going to go with it. This was a very good rye, especially at this price point. $40, you get a nice rye, it has a good amount of flavor, decent nose, and it's available. You can find this one. It's not like you really have to hunt for it. There are a couple of ryes out there that I've been wanting to try and wanting to get, and I just can't find them in my state. But this one's available, it's a good price, and Michter's is a reliable name. So if you're somebody who's looking to get into rye, or you like rye and you're just looking for one to have at your bar, I recommend this one. Well, that does it for today's episode of With or Without Whiskey. If you enjoyed the episode and you had a good time, let me know in the comments below. Also let me know what you think about Michter's. Do you like the rye? Do you prefer the bourbon? Is the American whiskey more your style? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. And remember guys, no matter how busy you are, there's always time for a drink with friends. Stay safe, everyone.